For this, I interviewed Lizzie Jackson. Lizzie had worked in social media for many years. She started up and ran the social media department for the BBC for many years. If there's something she doesn't know about the social media, then it's not worth knowing. Here is the interview.
Dr. Lizzie Jackson, what's my title? Academic Development Manager, Applied Research.
That's my title.
Should be a shorter version. ADM.
So it's, how often do you use social media?
Every day. When I'm not in meetings. Yeah, I separate it out. I use LinkedIn for professional contacts and keeping up with people, and also a sort of reputation management system, you know, recommendations and endorsements, and my network of people, and how to find people. So I promote myself on it, but I also look for other people. Facebook is friends, but inevitably professional people contact you via Facebook, and I find that a bit annoying because, you know, I'm trying to keep my professional stuff from my personal stuff.
So do you think the web is a safe place to store and share information?
It depends if you know how to keep your information, how to manage your own personal information, and that needs to be a subject taught at primary level.
That's true. So many people use, like, lots of kids, I was brought up with it pretty much. Do you feel like on a personal level you may give up too much information online?
I think it's inevitable. When I was a member of the Home Office Task Force for Internet Safety, we were worried about what we called jigsaw identification. So that was people going on different social media sites, and everything's pretty much social media now. You know, if you leave a recommendation on Amazon, you're leaving information about yourself. There are people sending information all around the place if you don't tick privacy to third parties, etc. But what we termed jigsaw information was you take a little bit of birthday from here, you know, some information about where you live from there, the school you went to from another place, you know, another bit of social media, and you can piece them all together and you can get an identity, complete identity for somebody, from which you can get you can get all sorts of generate all sorts of documents, including, you know, a passport eventually. It's not easy, you know, it's not difficult for criminals to do that.
So as someone that's been working in social media for so long, have you noticed a dramatic change in the past, say, 6 years?
Yeah, really. Yeah, it used to be a few people who were, and you were situated within the marketing department of companies. It was seen as a way to, purely as a marketing device. Then it became obvious later on that it really means, if you have any social media attached to your website, it means you have to change your whole customer relations management strategy and the way you relate to your customers and clients, or your shareholders, or anybody who interacts with your company. And then I noticed as the craft of a social media manager became more acceptable and grew, then there was a huge heyday, and sort of just before the year 2000, where I went to conferences and there were lots of social media managers. Suddenly the job became enormous. Then there was the dot-com crash and everybody was moved back. They cut all the social media and the social media managers, and people retained small services and moved them back into the marketing department, because some people have been moved out to have their own department. So it's fluctuated over the years, and then there was people started to announce that they were social media gurus, but nobody was doing training in social media. So I started a training. I trained up about 200 companies in the UK, running up from 1.0, a company based in Soho. So I would run the course about every quarter year. And that was very good. It was a one-day course, and it took people through the basics. Other people have sort of have done consultancy, provided consultancy, but there have been very few people who've done training courses, and hence that led to the need for the web media course, because a national higher education course that taught people these skills, how to participate. And I noticed there was a company in Bristol that started offering a training called SIFT. They got in the game fairly early. And who else is doing it? Now there's quite a few social media courses, webinars, econsultancy.com do a lot of webinars. There's iMedia.com, which is a company that teaches social media, but it's about social media marketing. Now, what I've noticed is a new trend, which is about second screen and connected television. And so the emergence of registration systems around television viewing. So what was seen as a pure internet thing is starting to become enmeshed in traditional media. And the emergence of big data, people talking about use and analysis of big data. So, and through the analysis of big data, people are starting to create television around people's multiple viewing habits through multiple second, third and fourth screens. Watch a television programme, see it on your mobile phone, play a game connected with it, vote for the X Factor during the programme. So it's changing all these sort of interactivity patterns, and what's happening is people are starting to, I've seen the first book about post-new media. So new media, there was new media, then there was new media, and now we've got the first academic studies coming about post-new media. There's a book from two professors at Goldsmiths came out this week. And they're talking about a reorientation of the media, studies of the media. So it's all about ethnographic, looking at people's behaviour patterns and sort of creating media to those behaviour patterns. And it's interesting that the BBC started to look at this. They do a 10-year study of people's media habits, and they started to give people, for the first time they gave people little, what they call personal digital assistants, to record every half hour how they use the media. And they suddenly started to realise that they needed to have a multi-platform approach. But the first crude multi-platform approach was really making a television programme and creating stuff around it. But now people are much more, people are having, through media analysis and analysis of media usage, through the BBC's big data surveys, but also people like the Pew Internet Studies and Nielsen, Forrester, the big people doing big studies about media usage. People are starting to make media in different ways, and it's all connected with participation, in social media attached and enmeshed in it, and that's why people who understand participation and social media are going to really have the edge over people who make traditional media. That's a very long answer, and how to teach people to manage on the part of the educationalists and mums and dads. You have to teach little kids how to be safe online, and mums and dads have to teach little kids how to be safe online. It has to start really early, right from 6-year-olds, 5-year-olds, and you have to progressively train young people how to manage their own personal data and how to interact with other people online to keep safe. And that goes to keeping your details safe, but it's also how somebody approaches you in a social media environment or a participatory environment. I could go into grooming and all that kind of thing, but it's really young little children need to know what, at the simplest level, have you been approached by somebody whose behaviour makes you feel uncomfortable? That's at its simplest level. And that's not, okay, there's bullying as well, which is physical safety, but there's also mental safety, but there's also personal safety, in the real world, in the day-to-day, everyday, well, it's all every day now, but in the physically present world. And obviously groomers would approach somebody online and then probably send them a mobile phone through the post and then start to communicate with them in a covert way, using a mobile phone. That's the classic thing.
Never heard of that.
Haven't you?
No.
Right, okay. Well, this is the classic grooming. And so and they send gifts and things and say, keep our communication a secret.
How can the user be sure that the service, if you will, that they're using is safe enough to give up information to, or to like sign up an account? Because generally an account asks you for your name, birthday, all the basic stuff, which you can probably get anywhere.
Yeah.
But obviously you can trust big companies like Facebook, well, relatively trustworthy companies.
Yes, of course, they've got their reputation hangs on it, yes.
Yeah, so how would a user that's not so internet savvy be sure like their stuff is actually going to be protected, their information that they give out is going to be protected?
Well, then that's why people need to look at the well, obviously you have to comply with the Data Protection Act. So any company who's operating as a limited company or providing a public service has to comply with the Data Protection Act, which means that there has to be, data has to be kept under lock and key or the digital equivalent of that. And so you have to provide a creditable enough service. And you also have to show in your terms and conditions how you will use data and whether you will pass it to a third party or not. And if you want to collect any data, there's certain data you're allowed to collect, like a name and that kind of thing, under fair use. But if you want to collect detailed data, you have to ask the person's permission in advance of the collecting of that data. And therefore you have to provide information about how that data will be used, and the person has to tick the box, physically tick the box, to agree the use of that data.
I asked Lizzie during the interview, do you think the internet is a safe place to store and share information? To which she replied, it depends if you know how to keep your information, how to manage your own personal information, and that needs to be a subject taught at primary level. I was pretty much brought up with the internet. I believe we got it in 1998 when I was about 7. And technology has changed a lot since then. With such accessibility, children really need to be prepared to some of the dangers that can be online. According to safekids.co.uk, studies show that young people from the age of 9 to 19 living across London access the internet for limited periods of times, but on a frequent basis. 74% of internet access is at home, 98% have access somewhere else, 24% have broadband at home, 22% of boys and 19% of girls had internet access in their bedroom, 24% rely on school as their main source of internet access. As a child, you see things in different ways. People forget, but the internet does not. Things you do online will affect people, and there should be classes teaching children how to be safe on the web. Bruce Sterling is a great example of that with his rendition of Digital Decay. He speaks about museums and how we can cause unnatural and natural forms of decay. But although a device may be able to decay when it comes to technology, the web does not. So he ends the whole digital decay thing, which I'll put a link down below. The reason history never ends at this point is that new people come along. New people with fresh perspectives and a new set of understandings and a bunch of problems they inherited. They can see the legacy of history in different contexts. The future has become their past. Just reading something like that, it's really important that people remember to be safe on the web.